Let's have a conversation. With this conversation, we're going to talk about where we left off with the harsh truths of the Selena story. So remember I told you guys I was going to read you some paragraphs. Well, here are all the paragraphs that I highlighted so far based on what I read from the entire book. So with this paragraph here, let's get started. It says, "We continued to sit there until nearly dark, even though what I really wanted to do was just jump up and start clearing our property right away. I didn't want there to be any coyotes or rattlesnakes around to bite our kids. I wanted to protect my family. It didn't turn out that way, of course. I wasn't able to protect Selena." So what do you guys think Chris meant about protecting Selena? Just pay attention to that one last key phrase in that paragraph. He says, that this is what he was imagining going to happen, but it didn't happen. He says it didn't turn out that way, and of course, I wasn't able to protect Selena. Selena had Yolanda in her back pocket and in her ear, getting her to believe certain things that was not true. Selena had her father in her back pocket and in her ear, telling her things that she should and should not do and can and cannot do. She had Yolanda manipulating her and lying to her, and she had her father trying to tell her what to do and trying to control her life. This is Selena I'm talking about, of course. Next part I highlight, it says, "I kept pushing my grief under the surface as I tried hard to continue what was left of my life." So Chris, he tried to come to grips and to terms with Selena's death, but it was hard for him. He didn't know where to begin. He didn't know where to start. He didn't even know what to do. He was so lost. Next highlighted section. So here it is, the story of my life with Selena. She deserves to be remembered not only for her beautiful voice and talent as an entertainer, but as a real woman who loved the ordinary everyday things, like walking barefoot in the evening to feel the warmth of the sidewalk on her skin. Selena loved as hard as she lived. We loved her in return, her family, her friends, her fans, and me, her husband, who felt like the luckiest man alive every time Selena said my name. This book is for her. So that's the dedication he wrote. That's pretty much all authors have a dedication before they actually, write the story or write the book. Next section. "Come to Mexico with us," A.B. urged when I hesitated. "It'll be fun." He was right. It was. It was also the trip that changed our lives forever. Up until this point, Selena and I had always been friendly around each other, but professional. I was closer to her older sister, Suzette, who played drums in the band and had a warm, weary sense of humor. With Suzette, I was comfortable enough to joke around, but I maintained a certain distance from Selena. Selena was barely 18 years old when I first joined her band, but she was already a seasoned professional entertainer. She had just signed with Capital EMI, which was starting up its Latin division, and had a voice that went right to your heart. So he's explaining what it was like when he first joined the Los Dinos band, and that Selena he looked at as just one of the guys in the band. He didn't really view her in an intimate type of way until later. He first had a relationship with Selena's sister, Suzette. He was always hanging out with her and laughing at her jokes and talking about things and just hanging out and kicking it. So this is the part in my first video when I was talking about how I believe Selena's sister may have been jealous of her. This paragraph kind of gives me that implication that Suzette and Chris was hanging out and joking around and talking first before him and Selena was. So Suzette and Chris were close with one another before Selena and Chris was. Okay? That's the part of the book that says that he first had a relationship with Suzette, and me reading that is just giving me the implication and the feeling and the gut instinct feeling that Suzette may have been jealous of her sister. Okay, next highlighted paragraph. It says, the first time I heard Selena sing, it never crossed my mind that I would ever play in her band, much less that she would one day become my beloved wife. I was playing a guitar in Tejano band fronted by another young singer, Shelly Lades. Even though Selena lived in Corpus Christi, about 2 hours from San Antonio, she and Shelly had become friends, partly because there were so few women in Tejano music at that time. One day, Shelly asked me to listen to Selena's new album, Preciosa, and tell her what I thought. So he's saying, when he first found out about Selena and Los Dinos, he was watching them on TV and heard things about them through the radio airways and saw their album covers. But he was just, a fan and a person who was working on his music and his craft. He wasn't even on their level. Shelly Lades, Selena's best friend, was a band member of Chris's before he became a band member of Selena. So he worked with Shelly Lades before he worked with Los Dinos, okay? Shelly Lades and Chris were in a band together before he joined Los Dinos. All right, next highlighted paragraph. It says, Abraham supported the family partly by helping his younger brother Isaac run his trucking business. So the Quintanillas were not a well-off family. They were not well-to-do. They did not have a lot of money. They were not rich. They were poor, just like the every average, everyday person. They didn't have much. They were at the bottom, just like most people are. So Abraham helped his brother with a trucking business. That's what he was doing to help support his family in the beginning. And before he worked for Dow Chemical, or it could have been after he worked for Dow Chemical. I can't recall for a fact which one came first, but I'll try to do some further research on that to find out. But besides Dow Chemical, he was working with his brother for a trucking company to help support his family, his wife, Marcella, and his 3 kids. Next highlighted paragraph, it says, gradually, they started getting more shows, and Abraham was able to buy a bus. Okay, so when he says this paragraph after working for his trucking business, okay, so this was after Dow Chemical. So by then, his children was already making money, traveling, and playing in the band during this time. So when they didn't make enough money performing and traveling, Abraham worked with his brother in the trucking business as extra source of income to support his family. Okay, so now basically reading this paragraph kind of clarifies what I just said I wasn't sure of. Let me reread. Let me start right here. Gradually, they started getting more shows, and Abraham was able to buy a bus, a 64 Eagle that the family dubbed Big Bertha. The bus was in rough shape and had no heating, air conditioning, restroom, running water, or power steering. In winter months, Selena and her family slept near the motor to stay warm. In the summer, it was almost unbearable. So basically, this paragraph explains the rough times that the Quintanilla family went through, including Selena. They didn't really have much, you guys. They were not well-to-do. They had to work extremely hard to build their name, their reputation, their stardom, their everything. They started out with nothing, but they worked hard to get to where they are today. And of course, like I said in my first video, Selena did the majority of the work because she was the front, person in the band doing all the singing and dancing. AB and Suzette were the musicians that played drums and bass. And then they had other band members that filled in the other spots in the band. And Chris, of course, was their guitarist. Okay. Duh. We already know this, right? So just ignore that part that I just said. Sometimes I have a habit of over explaining things. Moving on. In 1987, the year before I met her. So I highlighted that part, I guess, to remind me that he met her in 1987, the year before I met her. So he met her in 1988. He met Selena in 1988. So in the late 80s is when they met up. All right. Selena was therefore never without a chaperone. And this connects to what I said in my first video about how she was always with a chaperone, like family members, band members, or with a close friend of the family. She was never alone. And Abraham set it up that way. Abraham made sure that she was never alone because he didn't trust either Selena or he didn't trust other people. And he wanted to protect Selena from getting pregnant. He probably didn't want Selena getting taken advantage of, I'm sure, which is okay as a parent. And I'm sure he probably did not want to have Selena's image ruined by rumors and Selena be involved in things that would hurt her career. Okay, so Selena was therefore never without a chaperone. She and Suzette slept in their parents' hotel room when we were on the road, and Selena's parents accompanied her if she wasn't on stage, unless they sent AB or Suzette to chaperone her instead. Even on the bus, Selena often sat in the back with her mother. Marcella and Selena could sit on the sofa back there and talk for hours. Sometimes Selena would lie with her and head on her mom's lap while Marcella played with Selena's hair or massaged her scalp. I'd walk by there sometimes and Selena would have this glazed look like a cat. She was always Marcella's beloved baby girl. So this confirms what I said in my first video, that Marcella and Chris were the ones that had her best interests at heart when it came to the things that Selena wanted, the things that Selena was interested in, and the things that made Selena happy. The only thing that Abraham seemed to be concerned with was his money, his coins, his paycheck, and Selena's career. Because if Selena's career, hold on one second. I hate these apps. They move around. My tablet changed. I don't even know where the heck I am anymore. I was reaching down for my Carmex, guys. My lips always, in this kind of weather, my lips stay dry. All right, you guys, bear with me. I'm just putting on Carmex because my lips dry up. When I speak, they dry up, and I don't want them to be drying up while I'm speaking because it doesn't give it a good look. And then y'all will be distracted by my dry, chapped lips. Much better? Yeah, much better. Much better. All right, so, yeah, Selena and her mother were very close, obviously, right? We all know that because the movie kind of showed it. But the movie didn't show it in depth, but the movie showed it. But Chris's book confirms what we already have an idea of. Marcella was very, very, very close with her daughter. Selena was very close with her mother. I'm pretty sure that Selena was Marcella's everything because that was her youngest child, and the child that she could connect with because she's a female child. A lot of women connect with their daughters when they're younger. And then when they become older, they connect with them even more because they get to talk about stuff that they can share and can relate to as women. I could only hope that my daughter and I have that same relationship when she becomes older. I mean, we're super close now, and I just hope it stays that way when she becomes an adult. So Chris and Marcella were the ones that really had Selena's best interests at heart when it came to the things that Selena wanted, valued, was happy with, and dreamed of. Okay? Abraham did not support Selena's dreams or wants or happiness. He supported his own. Moving on. I was attracted to that woman I saw on stage, but I fell in love with the real Selena. The woman who laughed hysterically while riding speedboats, was determined to beat every guy in the band at video games, and wore jeans and sneakers and a baseball hat on the bus. Now, I'm sure we have all seen clips of Selena, right, wearing baseball hats and caps, right? So that kind of just expands what we already know and what we've already seen, right? So Selena's style was actually a baseball cap, a t-shirt, and jeans, okay, and some sneakers. When she was off stage, that's probably what her preferred style of choice of clothing was. On stage, of course, we saw her with the bustiers and the beaded bras and rhinestones on the belts, and we saw her style and what it was like on stage. We have enough evidence of that, right? But off stage, Selena was just a down to earth, sweet, homey person. She was not about all of that raunchy, upbeat type stuff. She wasn't about all that, but she was very, very funny, very goofy, had a very wild sense of humor, loved to have fun, loved to laugh, but she wasn't about all of that unconservative behavior off stage. She was off stage. Selena was a very conservative, down to earth woman. Okay, so there were two sides to Selena. Little did any of us know. There was the on-stage Selena, and then there was the off-stage Selena. Okay, the off-stage Selena was very innocent, very conservative, very loving, very caring, very down to earth, very loving and caring, emotional, always smiling all the time, always in a good mood, always did her best to love people. All right, moving on. We were always on the down low around her parents. But as the weeks turned into months, we gradually stopped caring about who else in the band knew about us. Everyone in the band and personal lives and secrets, we all had to figure ways around Abraham, who was a conservative man, a devout Jehovah's Witness, and a traditional father. We all knew how to keep secrets from him because nobody wanted to unleash his temper. Okay, so this pretty much confirms what we already think and about Abraham and what we already know of Abraham. Abraham has a very bad temper. Abraham is very controlling. Abraham is very egotistic, very self-serving, very controlling, very mean, rude, vulgar, and nasty like type of personality or attitude. Everything has to, everything had to be Abraham's way or the fucking highway. Like I said in my first video, everything with Abraham always had to be about what Abraham wanted, of course. And pretty much what I just read confirms it. So they had to do a lot of sneaking around to see each other, and they were fucking grown ass adults. I don't understand that to this very day. Please don't ask me to try to understand it. I will never understand it. They were older than 18. They were adults. They were like 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. So I just don't understand why they had to sneak around when they were grown. Did this thing do this again, man? I hate these tablets. Like, I wish I could get into settings and figure out how to just keep it to not move. I got up to close my door, and when I got back into bed to sit back down, this tablet just moved. This is not where I was at. Excuse me, one moment. Okay, moving on. The next highlighted paragraph, okay, says, I remember one time when we were driving alone together and Selena hit a dove. She wasn't speeding or anything. Selena and I were just jamming to the radio, cranked up loud when a flock of doves shot up from the side of the road and started to fly. This one little dove was slower than the others. It started flying straight along the road ahead of us, and we came up on that poor bird so fast that we hit it. The windshield popped him right on his tail feathers, and then the dove flew off. I swear that for a second I could see that bird's surprised face as he curved off. The bird wasn't hurt, but Selena had to pull the car over to the side of the road. She was crying so hard. She was almost hysterical. I hit that little bird, she said, sobbing. I killed it. Okay, so that just confirms what I just said, that Selena was a very caring, loving, down-to-earth person, and very emotional. And the fact that she hit a dove, that really made her sad. That really made her feel bad. She really felt bad for the poor dove that she hit, for that bird. Selena was like that, you know. She loved animals. She was a very loving, caring person. She was very sensitive toward stuff like that. Another reason why I highlighted that paragraph was because I heard someone say in the recent past that part in the book represented Selena's death. It was God's way of giving Selena a warning that she was going to die, and that that dove was a representation of Selena's innocence, and that dove suffered, and that dove was innocent, and Selena was a reflection of that dove because she was innocent and she was suffering at the hands of her father and people using her for money. And it wasn't just her father, but it was other people that was in the close to the tight circle, using her to get money. So this is what I heard, but I'm not going to say I believe it, and I'm not going to say I don't believe it. What I am going to say is that, you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion and theories and conspiracy theories. That's just one conspiracy theory out there that I heard. And so when I read that paragraph, that's the reason why I highlighted it. Okay, moving on. Like me, AB had once wanted to be a rock musician, not Tejano. His rock career had come to a screeching halt because Abraham had instead, I'm reading this so wrong, guys. Where's my brain today? Sorry, let me reread this. Like me, AB had once wanted to be a rock musician, not Tejano. His rock career had come to a screeching halt because Abraham had insisted on forming a family band to play Tejano music. AB had no choice but to play songs other people had written that he didn't like. Finally, he began to write his own songs and record them, eventually winning awards for his songwriting. So this just confirms what I said in the first video, that AB's dream was to be a rock band musician or to be a rock star. He did not want to play Tejano music. The only reason why he played Tejano music because Abraham insisted that he play Tejano music because it was Abraham's dream and he wanted AB to pursue his dream and not his own dream. And just like I said about Selena, her dream was to get into fashion, not singing. The only reason why Selena became a singer was because it was Abraham's dream, not Selena's dream. So this was not his children's dream. This was his dream. Do you understand? Okay. Moving on. Another afternoon, I was outside washing the car with my stepfather. Selena and my mom had just come back from shopping when all of a sudden the ice cream truck came by. Selena ran back outside, all excited. "Can we get some ice cream, Chris? Can we go to the truck?" I laughed and said, "Sure." Selena made a beeline for that truck, reminding me again of all the simple things about childhood that I'd taken for granted that Selena never had. Let me pause right there. I'm not going to read this whole paragraph through until I make this point. So this goes back to what I said in the first video about how Selena had sacrificed so much in her childhood and had given up so much that she was excited to get an ice cream from the ice cream truck. She was so excited to go to that damn ice cream truck and get an ice cream. A grown woman, mind you. This was a grown woman who was excited to get an ice cream from the ice cream truck. She was so excited about that damn ice cream truck. Okay? That to me stood out for the simple fact that any adult, when you hear and see ice cream truck, it's not going to faze you, right? You're going to be like, whatever. I can go get an ice cream from the grocery store. But Selena was excited about that damn ice cream truck. Sounds like to me behavior of a person who lost a lot in their childhood. Don't y'all agree? Okay. Sounds very similar to Michael Jackson's story, right? Like how Joe Jackson had Michael doing all this stuff and Michael lost a lot. He lost out on a lot in his childhood. And when Michael became an adult, Michael did a whole lot of childish things. He had a Neverland Ranch, which is very childish. He played super soakers and games, and he did a lot of things that were childlike activity, which could support the claim and confirm the fact that he didn't have much of a childhood. He did a whole lot of singing and dancing to support his father's dream. See, Selena and Michael's stories are very similar. Okay, moving on. She never complained about it, but Selena was never really allowed to be a carefree child the way most of us are. Sometimes I felt that loss for her. I was happy to give her at least a glimpse into the way ordinary people lived. Looking back, I only wish that I could have given her more. So Chris even admits to the fact that he feels like he didn't give her enough and he felt like he could have given her more. He wished he could have done and given her more. And it just connects the dots to what I said about protecting her. And he even said it in the paragraph I read to you guys earlier in this video about protecting her. You know, I just think Selena had a lot weighing in on her, and she had a lot on her shoulders. She had a lot to do. She had a lot of pressure coming from her father, of course, a lot of pressure from the music industry. And I just think any human being can only take so much, right, you guys? And when you get to that breaking point, when any human being, person or individual gets to that breaking point, you just you crack, right? Or you explode. Like you can only take so much, right? And I just think Chris probably felt like he wished he could have done more to support her and help her in that regard, like make her feel like, you know, she was going to be okay if things didn't work out, or she was going to be okay and protected, you know, against her father and protected against other vultures and wolves out there that was ready to, attack her and hunt her, right? Moving on. Ooh, see, I highlighted a lot of this right here. I don't even think I'm going to read you guys all of this because this is a lot. I'm going to just sum up the stuff I highlighted right here, starting from here moving forward until I get to more small patches that I highlighted. Or I could just read some and then kind of summarize as I read. It says, ultimately, it wasn't anything that Selena and I did that brought our relationship to Abraham's attention and brought his wrath down upon us both. It was her sister, Suzette. So it connects the dots to what I've already said, that I believe Suzette was jealous of Selena and her relationship with Chris, because I believe Suzette really wanted to be with Chris. I'm going to keep reading. We had just finished playing a show in El Campo, Texas. Selena and I were hanging out on Big Bertha while the road crew broke down the equipment. Everyone else was either outside or in the bar as she and I relaxed in the front of the lounge area of the bus. We weren't doing anything suspicious. We weren't even sitting next to each other. I was seated at the table and Selena sat on the couch across from me. We had changed our clothes and were just talking when we heard the bus door swing open. Instinctively, Selena and I both straightened up and fell silent as someone ascended the steps of the bus. It was only Suzette. Before I had time to feel relieved and make a joke, however, I saw from Suzette's expression that she wasn't as pleased to see us as we were to see her. Oh, God, Suzette said. She rolled her eyes at us, then spun around and got off the bus again, slamming the door so hard that the bus rocked a little. Selena and I exchanged puzzled glances. What was that all about? I asked. No idea, said Selena. It never occurred to either of us that Suzette would go to her father at that moment and tell him about us. Why would she? Suzette and I had always been friends. Like the rest of the band, she knew about Selena and me. She had already told us, look, I'm not involved in what you're doing together. And if Dad asks me, I'm going to say I don't know anything. A few minutes later, the door to the bus swung open again. This time it was Abraham, of course. He climbed the steps but stopped near the driver's seat, staring straight at me. Chris, can you come over here for a second? He asked. He appeared calm, but his mouth was set and his voice was hoarse from either fatigue or tension. Sure. I got up from the table, alarm bells sounding in my head. What's going on? Asked Selena. I shrugged and followed her father. By the time I reached the top of the steps, Abraham was standing on the ground again, just waiting. His dark eyes were hard and his shoulders were pulled back. What was going on? We had performed in Houston the night before. Abraham had been paid. So I ain't going to read all the rest of this. Abraham basically accidentally left some money in a hotel room that they had rented, but he went back to go see if the money was still there and went to get it. Then he told Chris off about himself, and he said that Selena would never believe him because Selena does everything he says and believes everything he says. And he had the nerve to say that, right? When somebody does something like that, it's showing their arrogance. So Abraham was a very arrogant person as well. So for him to do whatever he did and said to Chris when he went back to go get that money that he left at that hotel, that was a coward move on his part to take Chris alone and not just address them together. And then for him to sit there and say that Selena would never believe anything Chris has said to her about him and Chris's conversation because Selena believes everything that he says. That's just arrogant on Abraham's part. Moving on. I'm going to read this last part to you guys. It says, I remained silent as Abraham continued to yell and jab his finger in my direction, trying to intimidate me. And one more thing, he finished. If you say a single word about this conversation to Selena, I will deny it, and she's going to believe me. That's what he says. He says, I will deny it, and she's going to believe me. What made Suzette say something to him, to this day, I have no idea. It was probably just a rift between sisters, nothing serious, just a bad mood. So I don't believe it was a bad mood. I just believe that Suzette's ass was just jealous because it wasn't her and Chris who was getting into a good groove. It was him and Selena instead. All right, moving on. That didn't happen. Instead, Abraham grew increasingly difficult to be around. And like a lot of people have said when they met Abraham, this is the very thing that people were talking about, that Abraham was rude. He was not nice. He did not give autographs when people asked for it. He was just a very rude, distasteful, nasty person. He was in danger of losing his little girl and his star. His guard was up. Like I said, Selena was everything to Abraham because Selena was his money, his meal ticket, his business, okay? So this very line right here where it says he was in danger of losing his little girl and his star and his guard was up. So it wasn't, it was also, to add to it, it was also about him protecting his little girl, because any parent will want their child to be safe and want the best for their child. But also it was about Abraham's greed. He was trying to protect his money, okay? His business, his paycheck. The band members, including AB and Suzette, turned their backs on me, scarcely speaking to me unless it was absolutely essential to the work we were doing. So Abraham had the whole band intimidated, okay? Nobody did what they wanted. They did what Abraham wanted to do. Moving on. At the same time, Abraham was now on high alert for any potential trouble within the ranks. He kept a sharp eye on us and made sure that 99% of the time he was with Selena everywhere she went. Little did he know that Selena and I were still seeing each other in San Antonio and Corpus whenever the band wasn't on the road. Naturally, it hurt my feelings when the other band members shunned me. I thought we were friends, but now they made it clear that nobody had my back. On the other hand, what did I expect? Like me, nobody wanted to lose a job or mess with Abraham. Suddenly, I felt exhausted, thinking, really? This has to happen? Why? It must have looked like I was just passively sitting there, taking everything Abraham threw my way. Finally, I got out of my seat and stood next to Selena to show my support. Abraham glared at me. You know what you are? You're like a cancer in my family. Don't talk to him that way, Selena yelled. I love Chris and he loves me. So this connects to what I said in the first video about Abraham trying to control Selena's relationship with Chris, trying to stop her from dating him, trying to stop Chris from being around her. And Selena, and he was talking to Chris pretty bad, you know, saying things to put him down, put his character down. And Selena wasn't having it. Like I said, Selena stood up to her father, and she did not let her father talk to Chris any kind of way. She stood up for her man, okay? So Abraham may have been the way that he was, you know, mean, cruel, controlling, and scary and whatnot, but she did not let her father talk to Chris any kind of way. She stood up for Chris and defended him. And that same paragraph, Chris was just basically saying he got tired of just sitting there allowing Abraham to yell at Selena, so he stood up to show Selena his support. And you know, they had to do a lot of sneaking around and lying to Abraham, which wasn't cool, man. They were grown. And they had to literally do a lot of fighting, especially Selena, to keep their relationship intact. Moving on. Basically, Abraham says if they continue seeing each other and he calls this foolishness, I will end the band, blah, blah, blah. It's the same scene we seen in the movie. Selena, was standing there and just upset. And Chris finally he gets tired of it. He leaves. He gives Selena a hug and a kiss and he leaves and he heads back to San Antonio. This is when Abraham fires him and kicks him out the band. And Selena begs him not to leave, but he leaves anyway. He says it's for the best. He says, Selena, this is your dad. I don't want to come in between y'all, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to read this highlighted part because it's a lot that I highlighted. So I'm just summarizing here. Okay, moving on. All right. I knew that Selena was due to leave early that morning for a show in El Paso. I didn't have any place to be, so I had to decide to sleep in and leave at checkout time. The pounding on the door continued. I opened my eyes and glared at the hotel dark alarm clock. It was just after 10 o'clock. The hotel maid must be knocking on the door. I decided, thinking I'd check out. No, not right now, I yelled without getting out of bed. Come back later. Checkout is at noon. The knocking continued, more insistent now. Come back later, I shouted again. Don't you see the sign on the door? More knocking, grumbling. More knocking, grumbling. I got out of bed, yanked on my jeans, and looked through the people. It was Selena. It wasn't the maid, it was Selena. My first thought was, something must have happened with her father. I fumbled the lock and got the door open. What's the matter? Why aren't you in El Paso? Don't you have a show? Did something happen? She was crying too hard to answer. I just held her for a while on the bed, feeling her body tremble against mine and trying to coax her to talk about whatever was going on. Finally, Selena sat up and started telling me that she couldn't stand to be apart any longer. I don't want anybody to be in our way, she said. Let's get married right now. Of course, we already explained that in the first video, what happened. So I'm not going to do that again. Moving on. I'll never forget Selena's smile when I said I could just feel all of the pressure and stress leave her body as she watched me get dressed for the courthouse. I had nothing to wear but a t-shirt and jeans. Selena was wearing a skirt and boots. So they didn't wear nothing fancy. They just wore their regular clothes when they got married. She was never anything less than professional until today. But running off to marry me was Selena's way of putting her foot down and saying enough is enough to her father. She was just 2 weeks away from her 21st birthday, and she was ready to assert her independence as a woman. So she basically not only married Chris to save her and Chris's relationship, but also to solidify her independence and that her father could no longer control her anymore. Man, he said now, clenching his fist a little. Why did Abraham have to push you like that? What did he think was going to happen? So it's basically Chris's reaction about Selena rushing to marry him, because that's not what really Chris wanted for her. He wanted her to be able to take her time, but of course that didn't happen because Abraham kind of forced her into a corner and forced this whole situation to happen. All right, moving on. Basically, in this paragraph, he's saying that Abraham would accept him now because he's married to his daughter and that he doesn't have much of a choice because if Selena is not happy, Selena's not going to perform well. If Selena doesn't perform well, Abraham doesn't get paid. And that's basically what this whole paragraph is about that I highlighted. So I'm not going to waste y'all time reading it and bore y'all anymore. And basically, Abraham would show up to their house unannounced. Once they moved into the house that he suggested that they move into, that they really didn't want to be in, he would just show up at their house unannounced. I'll read this paragraph. It's a small one. It says, I never thought to ask her later if she'd known Abraham was coming over. He did that often after we were married, just dropped by unannounced. So she may have had no idea that Abraham was on his way. So that was another thing that Abraham did to control Selena and Chris's relationship. He would just show up at their house unannounced or show up to their stuff, their parties, their events, or whatever they had going on that was personally just between the two of them. He would just show up unannounced. Feeling a tremor in his body, I realized once again how devastated Abraham must have been when he discovered that Selena had gone against his wishes and how much it had cost him to come over here and accept me into the family. Selena was his baby girl, and I knew that man loved her more than his life, more than his own life. And I'm sure Abraham did. Don't get me wrong. Abraham was her father. I'm sure he loved Selena more than anything, but he had ulterior motives involved as well. But Abraham had apologized, and he was trying to make it possible for us to have a relationship both within the family and in the band. I respected him for that. So, of course, Chris may not have liked it, Abraham, but he respected him. And I guess that's all you could ask for from any spouse is you don't have to like my parent, but you got to respect them. And I think that's all Chris really wanted to do was just to respect Abraham for the sake of Selena. Moving on. This video is probably going to be super long, guys. I didn't intend for it to be long, but I just wanted to basically read paragraphs of proof and confirmation of what I said in the first video, that the stuff that I was talking about is not a rumor, it's not a lie. These is all truths. The only thing that I think I may have been wrong about that I said in the first video was the fact that Abraham was keeping a lot of money away from Selena. Chris did write in here and clarify that Abraham made sure Selena got a decent cut, and when it came to distributing the money for the band. And I think that may have been true, but I still think he was manipulative and making sure that he gave Selena enough to be satisfied, but not the rightful amount of money that she actually deserved. And that's just my opinion. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but my opinion is that Abraham gave Selena enough money to keep her wanting to come back to do the band and to continue making the money that she was making. But he gave her enough for her to want to keep coming back, but I don't think he gave her the rightful amount of money that she deserved. And that's just my opinion. But Chris clarified it and said he didn't give Selena a little bit of money. He didn't say he gave Selena a lot of money either, though. That's the thing. He just said that I'm going to try to find that paragraph. But before we get back to that point, I'm going to just read this paragraph. It says, "I love you, Christopher," Selena said. She always used my full name whenever things were serious or intense between us. Let's never let anything come between us change. Promise? Her voice was solemn and as I'd ever heard it. "I promise," I said, and told her how much I loved her, too. "I don't know what I'd do if I had ever lost you," I confessed. And Selena basically said she felt the same way. They started crying and wiping each other's tears. It was just so cute and romantic. And when I read that part, I actually cried, honestly. Unlike the rest of Selena's family, who scoffed at the idea of her actually going through with the fantasy of someday opening a fashion boutique and salon, I loved fantasizing with her about doing that. I could see how important the idea was to her. So like I said, the only people who really supported her idea of opening a boutique was Chris and her mother, Marcella. Abraham was not supportive of the idea. He was not helpful about it. He did not participate in any way to help her make that happen. Chris and Marcella did. And mostly it was Chris's doing that helped Selena with that. But Selena's mother supported her and gave her blessing. And Chris did pretty much everything to help Selena make that happen. Abraham only wanted her to focus on singing because Abraham thought it was best that she only just do the singing. Because Abraham wanted to keep his pockets full and keep his dream alive. Y'all see what was going on? If y'all just kind of read between the lines and fill in the spaces, it's common sense as to what was going on. Abraham was all about his dream, not his children's dreams. I had gone back to the hotel room to check to see if she was ready to leave, but of course she wasn't. "Go back in there and get her to come out," Abraham commanded. Like, who the hell was he to tell Chris what to do? He was a grown man. And how he gonna command an adult to tell another adult what to do. Like, daughter or not, Abraham had a serious problem, in my opinion. He had a serious fucking problem telling grown ass adults what the fuck to do. This man has a serious problem. He really does. So basically, Chris is saying he went back in to go check to see if Selena was ready. Selena was not ready. Abraham commanded him to go tell Selena to come out of that room and get on the bus right now. Basically commanding Chris to rush Selena. Chris said he wasn't going to do that. She will get on the bus when she's ready. She's grown. This is basically what Chris was saying. He was like, you can't rush her to get on the bus. She will get on the bus when she's ready. She's grown. And Abraham didn't like that. So I'm pretty sure because of that, Abraham went behind Chris's back and told Selena something about Chris that was not true. It made Selena mad at Chris for a couple of days because Selena felt like Chris was disrespecting her father. So Selena did not require Chris to like Abraham, but she did require Chris to respect him. And whatever Abraham told Selena behind Chris's back, it gave Selena the impression that he was disrespecting Abraham. That caused them to be like in a bad patch for a couple of days with one another, but they smoothed it out and talked it out eventually. Yeah, I pretty much broke down all of the stuff I highlighted here. I'll start right here. Things started quietly as a discussion. I could hear them talking in the kitchen because the apartment was such an open space, but rapidly escalating into another full-blown argument. Selena had made up her mind about something. It was very hard to get her to change it. And once Abraham didn't like something, he would do everything in his power to try to force people to do things his way. So interactions between them could get pretty intense. Often it really scared me when they started arguing. And shit, who the fuck wouldn't be scared? I mean, Selena, you got to take Selena's stubborn personality and Abraham's stubborn personality, and you put that together and you're going to have some nasty blow-off fights, right? Let's keep reading. You can't always tell me what to do, Selena cried. And that's when I decided that I needed to intervene. Yeah, Chris, you need to intervene and help your wife. I went into the kitchen and saw that Selena had lost it. She was crying. She was trying to talk, but she was crying so hard that she couldn't take a breath. What's going on here? I asked, looking from Selena to her father. Abraham turned and looked at me. What are you doing to her? He shouted. What are you talking about? This is all you. Right here, I said. Selena sank down to the floor and folded into herself. Still sobbing, I went over to her and held her, putting her head on my chest and rocking her as if she were a small child, as Abraham left and shut the door behind him. So Abraham, he put up a fight and he would not back down from trying to control Selena's decision making, Selena's thoughts, and Selena's, I don't know, just things Selena wanted to do in her life, or anything that had to do with the band, singing, and business decisions. Abraham wanted full and complete control of that. He did not want her to do what she wanted to do. He wanted her to do what he wanted her to do. Then he talks about when they were all three at dinner. Him, Selena, and Abraham were all at dinner, and a rude fan came by and asked for an autograph. And she stopped the fan and said, you can't just talk to me like that and say, sign this. My family and I were eating, I'll sign the autograph after my family and I are done eating, but we're eating right now and you're being very rude. And Abraham, the fan walked off with an attitude, and Abraham scolded her and was like, why would you talk to the fan like that? And she explained to Abraham, well, the fan don't have a right to talk to me that way or talk to any of us that way. And we're in the middle of dinner, and that's just rude. And I agree, you know, I agree. He would pick a fan's feelings and wants over his own daughters. That just didn't make sense or sound right to me at all. All right, what else did I highlight? All right, moving on. Around the time Selena's lease on her apartment was due to be renewed, Abraham announced that he was making an offer on a house in his neighborhood, a house on Bloomington Street with a yard that connected to his own. AB already lived next door to Abraham on the other side. If we moved in, the entire Quintanilla family would live in 3 adjoining houses. Oh no. No way am I going to live next door to my father, Selena announced. All right, so this is the end of the video here because it's just getting pretty long. I will make part 3 and write you guys comments and opinions and how you feel and what y'all think down below under the description box. I'll have more content coming to you guys soon with video number 3. And I wish you guys the best, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace later. And one more thing. Do you live your best life, get yourself together, and no robot behaviors over here. See y'all in the next video. Peace later.